Well, this is the kind of weekend that college football fans live for, a Saturday that is full of big-time games starting at noon and running all the way past midnight Eastern Time. In this segment, we're going to talk about the early afternoon games, beginning with Georgia at South Carolina. That game is at noon on ESPN2. Certainly a very interesting early season game, maybe more so given what happened in Gainesville last weekend. Florida Gators struggled mightily on offense with a very poor Miami of Ohio team, and maybe the SEC East race is open after all. The winner of the Georgia-South Carolina game could actually take an early lead in the division race. Georgia comes to Columbia with a freshman quarterback, Aaron Murray. Played well last week against a weak Louisiana Lafayette team, but they do not come to Columbia with A.J. Green, who's officially been suspended for 4 games. That's a big loss for the Bulldogs, as although they are very talented, have an experienced offensive line, maybe have the best kicker-punter combination in the country, to take a freshman quarterback into a hostile environment like Williams-Brice Stadium is going to be challenging. And when you don't have that superstar, big playmaker that you can always count on to make the play, to get the first down when you need it, to rescue the quarterback when he's in trouble, I think that's going to be a challenge for Georgia to overcome that. Meanwhile, South Carolina has not really fulfilled their potential under Steve Spurrier. They've actually had a pretty good defense. Last year they finished actually a very good defense, number 15 in the country, but they cannot get consistent quarterback play. Kind of ironic for Steve Spurrier, known for his offenses and his quarterbacks. Steven Garcia, it seems like he's been there for 6 or 8 years. Maybe he's finally become the quarterback that Steve Spurrier was hoping. South Carolina played very well last week against a pretty good Southern Miss team in an easy 41-10 win at home. If South Carolina can't win this game, Georgia with a freshman quarterback without their superstar player at home, then Spurrier should just say, you know what, I'm heading to the golf course, let's call it a career. So I look for South Carolina to barely pull out a very exciting game, 28-27 over the Georgia Bulldogs. In the other early afternoon game that might be worth tuning in, South Florida travels to Florida in the first matchup of these interstate teams. In the past, I would have not put this on my list of big games, South Florida taking on the Gators. But given the way the Gators struggled last week, maybe South Florida does make this game a little more interesting. Florida had less than 30 yards total offense in 3 quarters of play against Miami of Ohio. Miami had 1 win last year and ended their year with a 42-17 loss to Buffalo. Rarely do Gator Nation fans come to the Swamp expecting to see their team struggle against a team that has just gotten crushed by Buffalo. The Gators did pull away, and I do think that was a little bit of opening game jitters for a very talented but yet very inexperienced Florida team on both sides of the ball. South Florida comes in with actually an experienced quarterback. B.J. Daniels took over early last year after Grothy got injured. Up and down, he was the leading rusher on the team, but some of his passing days were good and some were not very good. With a year of experience, he should be better. South Florida in general has had a pretty good defense, but they lose a couple of their star players, in particular defensive ends from last year that were the big playmakers on defense. I think Florida plays better. I think South Florida is very fired up for this game, and it's just going to come out, blazing excited about playing the Gators in the Swamp. And it'll be close early, but I do think Florida pulls away. So we'll call it 30-20 Gators over the Bulls of South Florida in Gainesville. Coming up next, we're going to talk about some of the early mid-afternoon games, such as Miami at Ohio State, Michigan Notre Dame, and Florida State Oklahoma.